Well, welcome and thanks for coming. Thanks to Linda and the Southeast Steuben County Library for inviting me to do this presentation on how government works in Steuben County. Originally, and I wanted to just mention, Bill Boland was going to do this with me, but because he's been real busy with his campaign, he's not going to do it tonight, but he will be doing something in the future. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Hilda Lando, and I'm a lifelong resident of Corning. I'm married and have 3 adult children. I have been on the city council for 9 years, and then went to the county and as a legislator for 6 years. There are 2 people representing the city of Corning, that's Steve Mayo and myself, both of us Democrats. And Steve's been on, I think, 2 years. He has 2 more years to go. But this year I'm really excited because I'm running for re-election in the fall. Well, here it is, next week. And I'm running unopposed, which I'm very excited about because that's never happened before. I've had 10 elections and this is the first time I've not had an opponent. So the topic was to talk about civics. So I went to the internet to find out what the internet says about civics. And one of the descriptions of Wikipedia is the study of the rights and duties of citizenship. Well, what does that mean? So I went further and looked at a dictionary definition, and it said the study of the rights and duties of citizens and how government works. Another one said the study or science of privileges and obligations of citizens. And I think probably more so, I like this other one. It teaches the values of being an active citizen in the community. It teaches the importance of taking part in politics and helping to choose the leaders of local, state, and federal government. And it teaches how laws shape society and how they protect individuals. It teaches how the rights granted by government come with responsibilities not to abuse those rights. So, and as I was saying earlier to Linda, we used to teach civics in school. Elementary school, I can remember having civic lessons. I don't think they do that anymore, just like they don't teach life skills in school anymore, which is too bad. So I was trying to find out where civics, the word comes from. It comes from a Latin word, civicus, which means of a citizen. So I think that's pretty interesting. Another area that as I was doing my research, American values, talks about American values, something we've lost sight of lately. Studying civics gives meaning to our values in America. Concept of fairness and equality, commitment to protect the rights of individuals and to promote the common good, respect for the law and justice, recognition of importance of diversity. And all of those are important to all of us as Americans, but we're losing sight of some of those values. So, I'm on my soapbox talking about civics. Some of the things I suggest to people whenever I talk to them about anything like this, I say register to vote. If you don't register to vote, you have no voice. Not only register, but go and vote. Because I don't want to hear you complain if you didn't vote and the candidate that maybe actually won the election isn't who you wanted. You needed to vote. Be informed. Know what the candidate stands for. Don't just pick it because it's the party, or you think he's got nice hair, or she has got a nice voice. I mean, these are the things I hear sometimes. Ask the candidate questions. Find out what they're all about and what they stand for. Get involved. Support the candidate that you're in favor of. Write letters for the candidate. Make phone calls. Do things to help them. Stuff envelopes. It's kind of fun because then you get more involved in the campaign and then you have more of maybe some skin in the game. Know what the propositions are, if there are any. This year we have 3 on the ballot. I'm guessing a lot of people either are going to listen to read ahead of time about what these mean, or they're just going to say no because a lot of people just say no. But find out what they mean to you. The 3 this year, and by the time you might be reading this, or listening to this, it might be over. The election might be over. But one is to reduce or take away a pension for a public official who's been convicted of a felony. We've seen that over and over and over again in our government. This, in New York State, we're talking about taking away their pension. Maybe that'll keep them on the straight and narrow. Another one is the Constitutional Convention. There's pros and cons on both sides. You have to go read up on it, see what you think, and behave, and be able to kind of be informed when you go in. The third one is protecting the land in the Adirondacks, and you'll have to read on that as well, but I think some of that is where they can give, they're taking some land away but giving some back to be able to put things in like cell towers or optical fiber and not hurting the land at all. But those are the things you need to see what they mean to you before you actually go in and vote. You might even want to run for office if you do all of those things. You might find out how interesting it is. I happen to think it's very interesting and I enjoy every bit of it. So, now, how does Steuben County operate? Most people don't even know where the word Steuben comes from. But I think if I remember right, back in our history books, there was a Revolutionary War hero called Baron von Steuben. And the county was named after him. The county seat is Bath. Why Bath? I don't know, because Corning is certainly bigger. The county consists of 2 cities. The rest are all towns and villages. And the other city is Hornell. We are a county of 100,000 people, but we're spread out in such a huge area. We are the size, landmass-wise, of the state of Rhode Island. Now that's a big area. We go from here from Corning in the area here, all the way to Dansville to Hornell, and a lot of areas in between. I think, and I've said this ever since I started, this is my 6th year on the legislature. I won an unexpired term for 2 years, and then I won my own term for 4 years. Now, I tried 2 other times to run for office, once against Don Kreth, once against Phil Palmisano, who was our state assemblyman. I lost both of those, but persistence, you know that saying, she persisted? Well, I did, and I ended up winning. So every time I go to a meeting or I'm talking to people, I learn something new. Even though I was on city council for 9 years, the county is so much more complex. And there are so many different pieces to it that I'm always learning. Our main product is agriculture. That's our main focus. And of course we have, pockets like Corning with the manufacturing and all that, but agriculture is our main focus. Tourism is also growing and growing by leaps and bounds. So I represent, as I said, the city of Corning. There are 17 members on the legislature. Out of the 17, 4 Democrats, 13 Republicans. So people say, well, that's not representative of the county. No, it isn't. But getting people to run for office is very hard, and difficult. So we have 4 women on the legislature. Not too long ago, there was no women. There were no women. Then there was 1. Then there was 2. Now we have 4. And out of those 4 women, I'm the only Democrat. So we have. It's really fun. Meetings are fun for me because there's no real personality conflicts. We don't, we may not see eye to eye on things, but when we leave the meeting, it's forgotten. We don't carry a torch and say, that person wronged me. We get along very well. Prior to 1984, the legislature, the county rather, was governed by the Board of Supervisors. A lot of counties in the state still have Board of Supervisors. There were 34 Board of Supervisor members. So back in 1983, I think it was, the end of 83, they decided to go to a legislator board with only 17. There's 13 legislative districts, and we have term limits. We have term limits of 12 years, and we have weighted voting. So some people, when they term out, they will leave for a term and then maybe come back. We've had several people do that. And they can do that, but it's 12 consecutive years. Weighted voting is really not a big issue because most of the things we do are not that contentious. So we pretty much get along. I don't know, I think maybe once in the last 20 years they've used the weighted voting. We have a county manager form of government. We changed our charter 4 years ago to allow us to have a county manager. And it gives him more responsibility. Not that we've lost responsibility, but it gives him more. And the day-to-day stuff that we don't have to be really bothered by because he's closer to it than we are. We have 6 standing committees. I serve on 2, the administration committee, which involves internal affairs and county departments and operation of the legislature. It's a very important committee. I also serve on the Human Services, Health and Education Committee, which has responsibility for the social services area, public health, mental health, veterans, and youth services, and the Office of the Aging. Again, very complex. I mean, if I look at just social services alone, there's 250 employees in that department. It's amazing what they do. The others are finance, public safety, public works, agriculture, industry, and planning. Those are our 6. Everything's done in committees. If you come to our monthly legislative meeting on the 4th Monday of the month, you're not going to see a lot of questions because we've already had these all resolved by the time we meet at our monthly meeting. So people are assigned to committees. They're supposed to come to their meetings, the committee meetings, prepared. And we, as legislators who are not on those committees, still get to come to the meetings and ask questions. So I try to go as many meetings as I can. I can't make all of them, but I do make most of them. And that's, like I said, that's where you ask the questions. And if you're not happy with something, you can bring it up and challenge whatever is going on at the meeting. We elect a chairman every 2 years. Joe Horiski is our chairman. Jack Wheeler is our county manager. And I think Joe's been our county chair maybe 2 or 3 terms. I forget how many. But he does a good job, and he runs all the meetings. He actually does the appointments for the committees, and if you have a problem or a question, you usually go to Joe because he's the person that will help you. And we have a chairman's meeting right before our regular legislative meeting, and Joe arranges that where we get speakers to come in, or lots of times I'll suggest people that I've met that I think will be interesting that the legislators should know about. Our budget for this year is $178 million. We're working on the next year's budget. It gets approved in November, the end of November. We try to keep under the tax cap. Everyone says 2%. Well, it's really not 2%. When you figure out with the formula, it's probably a little over a 1% tax cap. We've been managing to keep under that. So, and how do we do that? Well, we have Jack Wheeler and a bunch of other people on the department heads who are really good at coming up with how to cut here, cut there, or live with what they've got. 92% of each dollar that we get in taxes goes to unfunded mandates. Now, that's a lot. That's for Medicaid, that's for social services, that's for the things that we have no control over. We have to do it. We're mandated to do it. So that only leaves 8%, not a lot. And that's for the things that we want to do that might be a little bit nicer to offer to the residents, or just things that we have to do that are not legislated, but we have to do. So 30% of the money that we raise comes from property taxes, and then nearly 16% comes from sales tax. So sales tax is important to us. The more sales tax we have, the less we're going to have to go to property owners for taxes. State and federal aid is about 27%, and the rest comes from a variety of sources. We collect a room tax from hotels and bed and breakfasts, etc., and that's 4%. That goes to our Conference and Visitors Bureau for marketing and tourism issues, tourism things. I serve on the Conference and Visitors Bureau Board. I also serve on the Pro Action Board, and I serve on the Cornell Cooperative Extension Board, which all are very interesting, and I've learned so much in the last few years. But back to the Conference and Visitors Bureau, as I mentioned earlier, tourism is growing. It's very important to this community. And one of the things we're going to do, we just did a big strategic planning session. We're finding out that people who live in these areas in the county are not really happy sometimes that tourists are here. And there's comments like, well, we're glad they're gone, but people don't understand how important it is that they come here, spend the money, stay in our hotels, eat in our restaurants, etc. So we're going to launch a program to help educate our residents to make sure they understand that it is very important for the tourists. So, it's pretty crazy now with the federal government, the crazy stuff you hear on TV all the time. I mean, as a matter, like today, for instance, you know, every time you turn on the news, there's something crazy going on. I don't know how you tell the difference between fake news or reliable news, but I think we all have to become informed. We have to understand that it's important for us to know what's going on and who the people are that are representing us. I think in the county legislator, because we're so local between that and the council, you know us. You see us at the grocery store. You see us at meetings or at the movies or events. So I think that's important because you know us. And you can hopefully trust us. We're not, I mean, I like to call myself a public servant, not a politician. And I think that's a big difference when you look at what's been going on in the state and in the federal government. One of the things that I think is important from my feeling is and something I've been concerned about is the whole opioid crisis. We have a serious problem in this area, not just here, but all over the country, all over the world probably. We have had 3 forums. The county has sponsored 3 forums, one in Bath, one in Hornell, one in Corning that was just last week, trying to educate people to what's going on and what are you going to do about it. We have resources at the county level. I found out that we've been doing this now for a while, that the VA has 25 beds at the VA that are open to the public. Sure, veterans get the first priority, but 25 beds for people to detox. Didn't know that, and I asked our sheriff, he didn't know it. I asked the DA, they didn't know it. So sometimes just from these forums we have, we're finding out stuff that we didn't know before. So now that we have that information, if we have somebody that needs to be detoxed right away, they could go right. He said most of the time the beds are open, they're available, probably because nobody knew it. And there's a new doctor there, so he's willing and wanting to get people help. So that's a priority for me is the opioid crisis. Other than that, you know, we have the day-to-day stuff that we always have to worry about, making sure that our people are safe, making sure social services does what they have to do to help people find a place to live temporarily. We have mental health issues, so we have a director who does a great job with mental health. We have our DA who's, you know, when I talk about the opioid issue, I'm talking about the people who are addicted. He's looking at the other side of it, the legal side, that takes care of, hopefully, the people who are supplying the drugs. So those are big issues, and I think that they're not going away for any time. So we'll be working on that for a while. The budget's a big deal right now, so November this month, this next month, we'll be passing the budget. And then starting in January, we'll know what we have to work with. I mentioned ProAction. I serve on that board. ProAction, for those people who don't know, is probably, I think there's about 200 people that work in that area. And that's a little of everything. That's Head Start, early Head Start. That's the weatherization program for people who need weatherization. There's so many different pieces to that puzzle. Literature, so that people are able to read. Things that are basic importance. WIC for people who need it with their children. So we have SNAP. We have all kinds of stuff between that and Cornell Cooperative Extension, trying to get people to eat healthy. You know, that way they won't be sick, right? If you eat healthy, you won't be sick, and if you're not sick, you won't cost the county money for going to the emergency room or your own bills paid. So those are important things to us. So my feeling is, in trying to summarize this, is we need to become united again. We just aren't anymore. I'm talking more federally and statewide, but even locally, I think it's important as well. We should bring civics back in the schools, and I think K through 12. That'll help people to become more informed as a voter. Even if you don't go out and vote, at least you'll know what's going on. And if you do vote, hopefully you do, maybe you'll even run for office because you think it's an exciting area. I personally think it's an exciting area, and I would hope that more women especially run for office. And people say, well, what's the difference? Well, women bring a different perspective to politics. And you'll see that sometimes when you're listening to state and local and federal people talk. We're willing to sit down and talk, right? We want to work it out. We don't want to start out by saying, no, we're not going to talk to you, we're going to do our thing, and don't talk to us over here on this side because you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat. That's just so crazy. So if you require civic education, I said maybe democracy will continue within the next 2 or 3 generations. Because we need to do that. We need to get united. We need to get back to what it is that's important to us as Americans. And that's a lot of, someone says, well, that's love, peace, and, whatever. Well, whatever it is, it worked. And where are we now? So I think the more people learn about civics and their responsibility as Americans with the American values will get us back to where we got to be. Thank you. I did it kind of in a hurry. I have questions, so.
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, oops.